This may be a rather lengthy rant, as I'm going to be talking about the 3 motion simulators that have experience with, along with also the hybrid that I coupled together. I've gotten some requests for feedback on comparing these simulators, as not a lot of people have had hands-on with all these different platforms. I will say though that take it with a grain of salt. These are just my opinions. They're very subjective. These are my feelings about after playing with these simulators. I've owned all of these for a period of time. The simulator I've had for the shortest time in the comparison is going to be the ProSimu. So my opinions of that may still evolve. But that said, I think I'll just jump into the comparison. Before I do though, I'll call out the simulators that I'm going to be comparing. One of them, the first one, is going to be, which was also my first motion simulator. It's going to be the DOF Reality P6. I had this for many years. It started out as a P2 and I upgraded it to a P3 and then I upgraded it again to the new gearboxes, so I'll talk a little bit about that. My second simulator is a D-Box Generation 1. It's a very, very good motion kit, so to speak. And the differences between the Generation 1 through 5, as I understand it, is that Generation 1 is limited to only 4 actuators, so you cannot add like traction loss or surge, etc. To the Gen 1. You can only go to 4 actuators. Gen 2 and 3, you can get at least a surge actuator. I don't know how many you can add there. You can also get up to 6 inches of travel on those generations, I believe. And then we have Generation 5, which so far only has the 1.5 inch travel, and can also go to multiple actuators and directions of travel. And lastly, I have the ProSimu P5MP. So this is the PRS200, I think they call those actuators. This one has a different actuator for the traction loss. It's a smaller one. This is one of their first P5MP platforms. I think it's serial number 5, so pretty early on. I did upgrade the control unit in it to get better. Well, I'll get into that later, but to get better motion and better motion support, really, software support. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about the hybrid that I created with the DOF and the D-Box coupled together. But the three products you can actually buy, I'm going to compare the following categories: price, setup, ease of use, support, build quality, rigidity, motion for road, and motion for dirt. I'm not going to talk about specifically for flight simulators, as I just don't run those very much. I mostly do racing. So, starting with price, the DOF Reality platform wins this category hands down. All categories are going to be scored from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. DOF Reality gets a 5 here because their prices are just unbeatable. They're much better than anything else you can find on the market for motion. So if price is one of your primary concern, DOF Reality is the way to go, and I would recommend going with an H2 or a P2. Just those two directions of travel are really the ones that add the most. It's nice to have traction loss. Some people say it's a must. I don't agree. I agree that it's nice. Now that I have it, I don't want to get rid of it. But that said, the other axes bring 90% of the fun to the game, so just keep that in mind. Then we have the ProSimu P5MP. I give them a 3 on the score here, because it's a very expensive platform, and becomes even more expensive if you live in the US, because shipping from France, something as big as that, this platform is massive, and there's lots of steel in it, and so it's going to be expensive shipping as well. But trailing the group here is still D-Box, and the reason for that is twofold. One big reason is that there is no price transparency on D-Box platforms. D-Box does not sell their motion systems directly to consumers. They only sell them to other makers of racing simulators. So you can get a lot of various racing simulators with D-Box actuators. They tend to be very expensive simulators, as D-Box itself is expensive. But that said, you can get a pretty good deal on just the actuator set. The best I've seen is a Gen 5 with 4 actuators under 6, maybe 5.5 or so US in the US. But ultimately, you're gonna have to find them, because D-Box does not sell directly to consumer, as far as I can tell, and through distributors the prices vary greatly. Most of them don't even sell directly without a simulator on top. So moving on to setup, and really what I'm talking about here is the ease of setup, or alternatively how hard it is to get in the game on these. D-Box wins this category hands down, gets a 5 there. It is, having had experience with other motion simulators, it is amazingly easy to get this one to work. It is pretty close to plug and play. You well, as in my case, if you just get the actuators, then you of course need to mount those to your rig somehow. But beyond that, you just download the software, plug it in, and it's up and running. That's as easy as it gets, and a far cry from what you're going to experience with the other offerings that I'm going to talk about here. In second place with a 3, and that's a pretty big jump from the 5 from D-Box, but I give DOF Reality a 3 here. It is not easy to get this one set up, but it is achievable. You can get through it. You're probably going to run into problems. You're going to get it set up. You think you followed all the instructions, and it doesn't work. Most people following the instructions again works, because there's a step that was missed that you may not have realized. There's also decent videos online on how to assemble these things. But those videos you need to find on YouTube. I don't think DOF is linking to them directly on their site, which is unfortunate, but there it is. And then lastly we have ProSimu, which I give a 2 here for setup. They on the software side probably similarly complicated as DOF Reality. Slightly more so if you're going to be using sim tools. If you have an older rig that does not have the updated control unit, then you can only use sim tools version 2. That's just not a user-friendly experience. And then when you add on top of that finding the software can be tricky, at least if you buy these second-hand, right? If you buy them directly from the manufacturer, I'm pretty sure they make this part easy for you. But finding the software if you buy second-hand is tricky, because you need to register on the manufacturer's site, let them know what platform you have, the specs, and then they'll upload specifically the software for your rig on the site. I don't know why it's so complicated. It seems like it shouldn't need to be, but it is what it is. They are, however, I'll give them credit. Once you do reach out to them, they are pretty responsive. As soon as they figure out which platform you have, they'll give you the right software. That doesn't mean that software is easy to set up, a far cry from it. And since this company is in France, a lot of the instructions are in French. I don't speak French, which did slow me down a little bit with setup, at least where I needed to refer to manuals. But Google Translate is your friend, and it got me through it. So that's why they get the lowest score on the setup part. Now, brings me to ease of use. Again, Dbox wins this one hands down. It's just once you're installed, up and running, there isn't really any maintenance that you need to do on the software. It's just there. It'll ask you to update occasionally, which you'll probably do, and it'll just keep running, keep working. Doesn't matter what generation platform you have. They support all their platforms, and it's gonna, well, at least so far everything's been working. I have no expectation that that's going to change in the future. In second place here is ProSimu. I give them a 3. Again, considerably lower from the Dbox, because it is that much harder. It's not super hard once you get into it, especially if you use the SimRacing Studio software. I find that much better than SimTools. Granted, I haven't tried the SimTools 3 beta, I've just used SimTools 2. I find it rather unintuitive. Once you get into it, I mean, it's usable, but I just prefer SimRacing Studio because it allows you to tweak more things. And you're going to want to tweak more things if you have these platforms, simply because it's not going to be quite as smooth and intuitive, the motion for every game or every car, as it tends to be with Dbox. So you're going to want to tweak them, you're going to want to tune them, and SimRacing Studio does make that easier. You can also get a subscription model from them, which then I think automatically they will upload the tunings from their internal king of tunes, which is great, because he does do a really good job of tuning all the games. But even if you don't have the subscription, if you just have the one-time bought license, you can still manually download. Well, maybe not download. They're not downloadable, the tunes in that sense, unless you have a subscription. But you can. They are shared on the side, so you can manually tune based on feedback from other people. And then we have DOF Reality in last place here. They score a 2, and the only reason they score 1 less than ProSimu, since ultimately it's the same software, and the day-to-day operation is going to be well, similar, if not exactly the same, right? The reason I scored them a little lower is because you will run into scenarios where you're going to have to balance your rig, and that's not easy at all. That's you need to use a completely separate software for that. You will get familiar with the software when you set up the rig, but it is a thing. It's annoying to do because it takes a bit of time, which you don't want to be spending on balancing your rig. You want to be spending it in game. Support. I give DOF Reality 5 out of 5 here, and arguably the best score, even though Dbox also gets a 5, but I'll talk about that in a minute. DOF Reality gets a 5 for support because, well, they have fantastic support. They are in Ukraine, so there's sometimes a little bit of a lag on a response, but they seem to be very responsive most hours of the day, always helpful, and and go the extra mile pretty much every time, at least when I've had to reach out to them. And I've had to reach out to them a few times, sometimes because I missed a step in the manual, and they courteously told me to follow the instructions again, which I did, and it worked. And also I had issues with my rig, ones where I needed a new sensor, and ones where the control unit, which in this is a I forget what it's called, but ultimately it's a little control board, and in both those cases they were super helpful. Control unit was easily replaceable for me, because it's basically something that's store-bought, and then they connected, remoted to my computer, and flashed it with the right software, which was the key there. And with the sensor, they sourced one in the US and had it shipped directly to me, so and actually never charged me for it. So great price, as it was zero, but also did not expect it to be free, but either way, I really like that they were able to source it somewhat locally, so keeping the cost down. And that's something that I will score down for ProSimu in a minute, and I'll talk about that also. Debugs, I give them 5 for support, but I don't know if it's really deserved, right? I have reached out to their support primarily when I bought my platform, because I was trying to confirm that it was what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a thing called 4425, well, 4450 or something like that. 4450i or whatever. Because I needed the stronger actuators, and then when I got them, I wasn't sure, so I reached out to support, and they helped me out, in explaining that this was not a 440 system. This was indeed a 425, which is a system I have. It's a great system. It's just not what I thought I bought, and support was really great in helping me figure that out. But that's really the only time I've ever reached out to debug support, because there's just been no problems with it. It runs smoothly, and that's why I say I don't know if the 5 is really deserved there. I mean, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The one time I needed them, they were there for me, but it's hard to tell if they're really that great. ProSimu P5MP, I'll say that the guys there at ProSimu, they are great. However, there are a couple of things that caused me to score them down on the support. One is the download scenario that I talked about earlier, and maybe I'm double dipping here and scoring them down twice on the same thing. The other one is also that the manuals are sometimes in French only. They have English manuals, but you'll find sections that are only in French. They're probably not critical manuals, but they will still cause you to go to Google Translate, because you don't know, right? So I've scored them down on that also. And then shipping, because they are in France. It is very expensive to ship stuff there if you're in the US, and similarly to get stuff shipped from there. So that's a bit of a hit. When I upgraded the control module in my box, they initially wanted me to send the whole rack unit over, which would have been amazingly expensive, probably like $500 or $600 for me to ship it, since FedEx and UPS are not very nice when giving individual pricing. But they were, however, very understanding and helpful, and told me what they actually needed from the rack, which was a small unit, so I super appreciate that. I was able to take just that unit and ship it to France, and then they shipped a replacement over. The upgrade cost on that was close to $700 with shipping for me, which is considerable cost for the upgrade. If you do have a unit that's like mine, was old and only supported the sim tools, you're going to want to upgrade, because moving to SimRacing Studio is totally worth it. But you kind of also have to upgrade, because from what I gathered from my conversations with ProSimu, they do not have plans to support the older control unit with SimTools 3 either. So future games may not work for SimTools 2, and so then you're kind of locked in. Or well, you're in bad shape unless you upgrade. So you kind of have to upgrade. If you're in the States, it's going to be expensive to upgrade. So these are kind of the things that I score them down on. The fact that they're not planning on supporting their older stuff on SimTools 3, the fact that I had to ship stuff to them to get the replacement. I don't know, maybe they have use for that item that I shipped back, but feels redundant. DOF did not make me ship back the bad boards when I had that issue there. Anyway, moving on. Build quality. I give debugs a 5 in build quality, because the controller and the actuators are really sturdy, really well built. Connectors are not going anywhere. It's just top notch. However, I say that with a big asterisk and caveat, in that that's just the actuators. That's not the actual full sim rig, right? And most people are going to be buying a sim rig from some other manufacturer that has debugs attached to it, to which I can't speak to those build qualities. I would assume they're probably pretty decent, because those tend to be super expensive. DOF Reality, I give them a 3 for the build quality. The main thing I score them down on is that their frames are a little flimsy. They do flex. You're not going to necessarily have a wheel flex, although you could if you don't strengthen it up. But there is flex, and there's squeaking in the frame. So there's going to be movement, there's going to be squeaking. It's going to make it a little loud. And I realized, as I say that I didn't call out in the beginning that I was going to be talking about also how loud these rigs are, but I will. But after this. Anyway, it's squeaky, it's a little flimsy, it's not very rigid, right? But I have a special category for that. For ProSimu, I give them the same score, but for very different reasons. Their platform is massive. There is absolutely zero flex. You probably couldn't flex that thing if you wanted to. It's a big hunk of steel, or a couple of big hunks of steel. But where I scored them down, and maybe I'll go as far as to say a 3 is too low and give them a 4 on it. But where I scored them down is the connectors for the motion system are kind of flimsy. They're by far flimsiest out of the bunch. Also, the connectors that go from your actuators to your box can only be disconnected on the rig, not at the box, which is weird. That said, it's also that way on D-box, or more accurately, it's really not feasible to disconnect those on either side. But the connectors are flimsy, and that's kind of why I'm calling that out. One of them is already broken for me. It's not a big deal, but They are what they are. And the second thing that I don't like about it is the it's the bolt system that the platform uses. It uses a weird kind of like a drop-in nut system, kind of similar to like what you would do in like aluminum extrusion, but just much bigger and much steeper drops. You can get used to using it, right? You just need to always have the right length of bolt, or you're gonna struggle with it. So I don't recommend that system, but still, score of 4 I think is a good fair score for that. Now, rigidity. As I've already hinted towards, DOF Reality does not do great here. Their frames are a little bit flimsy, so they are going to squeak. And when you sit in the rig, it is going to move a bit, even though you're not in a game and there's no movement going on. It's going to move with you a little bit. That is not the case at all with the ProSimu. That thing does not move unless there's motion in the game, because that thing is massive and solid, so no movement there. And D-Box, I can't give them a score here. There's nothing to score, because it's only an actuator system, and so there's no rig to score. Moving on to noise, and this is actually something that I didn't put on the table here, so I'm gonna but I feel like I need to talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it before I go into the motion of these rigs. Noise is a factor. DOF Reality. So when I had the worm gears before I upgraded the gearboxes, the gears were loud, but ultimately the loudest thing about the DOF Reality rig is that it squeaks because it's not a very sturdy build, right? And also how the upper frame is connected to the lower frame. It moves and it's going to cause noise, and that is the noisier part of it. After I got the gearbox upgrade, the noise from the motors is almost non-existent. Both of the other platforms have noisier motors, but that said, this platform is still loud because of the frame is going to do some clanging and squeaking. D-Box. I don't want to give them like a top score here. Maybe I didn't score DOF on that. I'll give DOF a 4. I mean, it's going to make noise, but you're fine if you have speakers and you're running your game through speakers. You may notice it, and so headphones can come into play there. But D-Box, they are noisy. I'd give them a 4. I mean, they're noisy, but they're not that super noisy. It's fine. You'll hear the motors whining when they're going up and down, but it's not as loud as the DOF platform. Trailing the bunch here is the ProSimu, however, and it absolutely simply fails in this category. There's no way around that. It just fails. The motors aren't that loud or noisy. They're probably similar to the D-Box motors in the noise output. But the thing that really gets me with this one is that the control box, the rack, the actual boxes in there that control the actuators, they have fans on them, and those fans are super loud, and they're just not just loud, they're like squeaky loud. There's like, it screeches. It's terrible. This is the only platform where I felt the need to wear sound cancelling headphones while I play the games, and that's just not cool. It is not cool at all. Now, as I say this, and I give ProSimu a 1 here only because I started with the guidelines of 1 through 5. I'll say that on their site they do list something which they call silent platform. If you're considering buying a ProSimu, you should reach out to them and check if this is the thing that they're making silent. Because ultimately, if the actuators are more silent, I mean, that's fine. But if your control box is going to be like screechingly loud, it won't matter, right? So that said, if you do have the option of like having a door like within 3 feet of your platform, and you can just put it on the other side and close it, that's probably what you want to do here. I don't know what I'm going to be doing with mine. I have not fixed this yet, but I am probably going to risk damaging it in trying to fix this issue, because it ruins it for me. And so I will probably be at some point, when I have time, disassembling those units and trying to figure out how I can cool them in a non-screeching fashion. That said, I know I've given them a lot of crap for this. I don't know if this was how they were shipped or it just got worse over time. Either way, it's a terrible experience. So I will try and record it and put a noise sample at the end of this video, so you can hear the screeching. I don't even know if my recording devices are good enough to get that in a way that makes sense. But my experience is, however, I need sound cancelling headphones, and it's still not enough, right? It's not painful anymore when I have them on, but it's you can still hear it, and it is just super annoying. Anyway, moving on. Motion. So I split this into 2 categories: motion for road and motion for dirt. For D-Box, I give D-Box a 5 for road, and I give them a 1 for dirt, which is, of course, they're on the separate ends of the spectrum here, right? They're the best for motion, the worst for dirt. The reason for that is pretty much, well, they're fantastic for road because these actuators do give in my opinion, the most accurate road field. These actuators, you just get a much better sense of what your non-existing tires and suspensions are doing, right? Because it's virtual, of course, everything, but with this, it really gives me a sense of I can feel what the front right wheel is doing versus the left rear wheel, and that's, I don't get that those signals as clearly through any of the other platforms. And I give them a 1 for dirt, because these actuators only have 1.5 inches of travel, and that's just not enough. It's just it's way too little movement for off-roading, because off-roading moves a lot more like that. The suspension moves a lot more than that. The roll of the car and the body is a lot more than that, and that's all without hitting a berm or running a jump, right? So they're best at roads, worst at dirt. That said, they do have a 6-inch version, which I've never tried, so I can't say if it's better than anything else, but they do have that, so would be fun to try that at some point. Maybe it's as great as the road is for the 1.5, but that's it. So if you're only going to be running road, D-Box Gen 1 or really any of the generations with a 1.5 inch travel should be fine. And then next up we have ProSimu, which I give 4 for road. So they're slightly lower for road than D-Box, because it's not as crisp, that the feedback I get from the tires in the ProSimu. It's not as crisp. I've tried to tweak it in SimRacing Studio, taking out all the dampening, etc., and it's just I don't get that same crispness, but it's still good. It's actually really good. It's just not quite that good, if that makes sense. However, for dirt, it scores a 4 also, which is much better than the D-Box, and that may simply be because of the additional travel there. My rig, I believe, is probably 4-inch travel, even though the guy who sold it to me said it was the 8-inch, but I think it's 4-inch travel because that's all I've gotten it to move. That said, that makes a huge difference when you're off-road, like when you're in dirt rally or Pro 4 tracks, which is probably the video that you're watching right now. So yeah, huge difference. So ultimately, if you want something that's going to be pretty damn good at everything, ProSimu is a good choice. Aside from that noise issue needs to go away. It's just unacceptable. And that brings me to DOF Reality. For motion on road, I score them the lowest. They get the lowest score there. On the gearbox versions, I mean, there's too much play to give like accurate motion. It's gotten better with the new gearboxes. They're kind of become somewhat more like actuators with those. So there is more accurate road feel. But then again, it is a pivot system, right? So there's only 2 motors. You don't have one on each corner. So it's not going to give you quite the same granularity of like just one tire starting wobbling or whatever, right? But dirt, it's great. It's great for dirt. I give them a 4 for dirt also. Same as the ProSimu. So yeah, and the reason for that is it's got heaps of travel. It is a pivot system, right? So you're balancing on a pivot, and then there are just 2 motors that create the motion, which means that there's no heave, right? Your whole body cannot lift. You get the heave with D-Box and ProSimu. That said, I'm going to throw out a little bit of a warning here. You do, from having the heave, you do get 4 independent, like moving actuators, which is great for that feel, right, of what the car is doing. But there isn't really any heave that I've ever experienced in any racing games, right? It's like if you fly off a jump, right? If you fly off a jump in reality, you get those butterflies in your stomach as you become weightless for a little bit of time before you hit the ground. There's no such thing in the games, at least not yet. It's because the physics in the games aren't real physics, right? There is no force acting on the car while it's dropping in the air. There's only a force acting on the car when it hits the ground, right? So the additional travel and fast response is really what's going to give you the most feel in off-roading. And having 4 actuators is great for that, but having having fast and long travel is the key there, and D-Box has that. Sorry, not D-Box. DOF Reality has that at a very, very competitive price, because those two actuators that are really they're not having to lift any weight because they're just pivoting the weight. They can move very fast and have very long travel, which is great. And that brings me to the end and a little bit of blurb on the hybrid. So the hybrid is once upon a time in the galaxy far, far away. I had a D-Box Gen 1 system that had no home, right? I bought a system with the intent of building a Formula simulator, but it didn't have a Formula tub yet. So I mounted that system on my DOF Reality platform. That was fantastic. It was, it was crazy motion. It was super fun. I really like it. I kind of miss it, and I want to do it again. Although now I've shelved my DOF, so that's not really going to happen. But I want to do something like that again. And that said, the ProSimu doesn't quite get there. It's pretty close, but ultimately there's two things you need to keep in mind before you do something like that hybrid. One is, yes, in some ways you're going to get the best of both worlds, but in more ways you're going to get the worst of both worlds. So keep that in mind. And when I say that, it's like if you put a DOF Reality platform on top of a D-Box platform, you're still going to have the flex in the DOF Reality platform. You're going to get the super long motion of the DOF Reality platform, which is great for dirt, and you still have the fidelity of the fine movement from the D-Box platform to give you the small like feedback of what's going on with the wheels. So you do get both, like in that sense you do get like best of both worlds there, but you also lose out on like where the weakest link is on like the platform feeling solid and rigid. It's not going to happen with the DOF platform because it isn't, right? And of course the D-Box platform being like super easy to use, super easy to set up, and the DOF platform is not, right? So you still need to deal with the technical issues, and you're going to have to deal with them more because now you have two sets of tech that you need to maintain and make sure works, and not just works but also works together, and that's not a given. You probably can't mix any two platforms together because you'll need software either that supports both, or you need two software suites that can work independently. And I know that the D-Box software can work independently of SimRacing Studio, so if you're using a platform that has that and D-Box, then you're probably good to go, at least as of when I tried this, right? And it has now been more than a year since I tried this, so I guess my memories may be starting to romanticize it a little bit, but that's something that I wanna try in the future. I am gonna keep my ProSimu. I am gonna try and address the noise issue because it's really, really good, except for noise issue, and I want it to be there. I may at some point though mount D-Box actuators to that also. In this case, I've actually scoped it out a little bit. The platform is massive, so I would not put the D-Box actuators under the ProSimu platform because it's probably just too heavy unless I would be able to get the 440s. What's probably better is because the ProSimu platform is so big, I can mount a platform on top of it, and since it can hold a whole lot of weight, it shouldn't be a problem. So I may try that at some point. But yeah, there it is. I throw out one more thing about the ProSimu P5MP. The actuators are very far apart, And what that means is that does limit the amount of motion it can do with the travel, right? It's just I guess physics. The closer you move that actuator towards your body, the bigger the angle, the more the fast movement, right? But that's it. I have no complaints. The movement seems pretty good. Would like it to be a couple of more inches, but I have no complaints. It's just that you do need bigger actuators to get more movements when you move them so far out. That's why you often see actuators much closer to the driver, like right under the butt for the rear end, and then just front of the steering column for the front. But anyway, it's not really a factor because it works well as it is, and so there's that. I hope this rant was helpful to at least one person because it's very specific. But yeah, this is my rant on motion simulators. Probably won't be the last rant because at some point I'll probably try some other simulator or do a hybrid again. Thanks for listening, and click that subscribe because you never know, I might post another video next year. Have a great day. Bye.